Hello, everybody. This is Greg Olson with GROWL Connex, and we're here today with our virtual panel to talk about sports. And I'm going to let everybody kind of go through, introduce themselves. So this is our weekly series every Friday at 10:30 Mountain Time, and we've had really great, exciting topics. And today, again, is something about everything about sports in your community across the country. All of us are watching maybe old football games, recording some NASCAR. We're trying, I don't know, everything we can do. And then really just the harsh economic impact it's having across the country. I'm going to go through. My co-host always is Kim Woodworth. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks, Greg. My name is Kim Woodworth, and I am the Operations Director of the Economic Development Council of Colorado, which is a statewide nonprofit association that supports economic development efforts across the state of Colorado.
All right, and hey, hello, Renee Smith. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good. Go ahead.
I'm Renee Smith. I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Grand Junction Sports Commission, which works to bring sporting events to the Grand Valley and support local sports and events that happen.
Good. All right. Thank you very much. And Jen Stoll.
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Jen Stoll and I run Stoll Sports Strategies. I do consulting work in the sport tourism space, and I head up research and education for our industry's professional association called Sports ETA.
All right. Well, thank you for being on. Well, let's get right into it. With continued concerns around, COVID-19, I'm waiting for the day that we don't have to say COVID anymore. Local to national to global sports have been impacted. The way we play and participate in sports is going to change, and also the way we watch sports is changing. Let's first start with maybe just go around, and I'll start with Jen Stoll. How do we see the business of sports changing? I mean, there's a major loss of income, where the economic development, I mean, what are you seeing out there? What are your colleagues talking about? And what do you want, if you can just kick us off with kind of what your thoughts are.
Yeah, we're seeing obviously a massive loss right now as sport is really at a standstill, and particularly in the travel segment as well. Tourism Economics estimates that it's taken a $99 billion hit since March 1st. That's down 89% from last year's kind of high.
What's that number again?
Yeah, it's 99 billion
what?
hit so far, and that's projected to be 80 billion by the end of the year. I'm sorry. So March 1st, since March 1st, it's 99 billion. That's 89% down year over year compared to where we were last year when things were rocking and rolling in the sport and tourism industry. So a lot of it is still the waiting game to see what's going to happen as things loosen up. That's sort of phase one. But phase two is also, what does sport look like from a delivery standpoint once the restrictions loosen up? And then that's going to change policies and procedures for delivering sport in general.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I mean, season ticket holders, NCAA, I think you and I were talking about college sports. I mean, how do we even, I know we don't have the answers, but how are we going to get back to that, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's time will tell. There's a lot of ideas floating out there right now, and it's really about, waiting to see when things loosen up, but also kind of measuring that consumer confidence and consumer sentiment. How are people feeling about being back in groups, and what does that look like, and how can those be implemented?
Yeah, we're not going to know. I mean, we're just getting into these different phases, and all the communities across the country and different states starting to open up in different communities. I want to move on to Renee. You do such a great job in what's happening in the Western Slope and all these different with destination sports tourism, across the state and community. I mean, what are you and your colleagues across the state, or what are you hearing and things like that? And, how do we prepare for this, and what does the future look like?
Yeah, similar stuff to what Jen's saying, and we're kind of learning as we go and attending a lot of sports ETA seminars and webinars, and trying to kind of keep up with other industry leaders in this. But I mean, from a local perspective, obviously all the sports are being canceled, and it's very much a wait and see. Some people continue to hold out hope, but it's just like waiting for the next deadline to come and go, and then what, you know, new restrictions or policies are in place after that. So it makes planning very challenging, especially, I mean, for all sports, and then, you know, your local events that are happening here in the Valley. 30 days seems to be the magic marker for them of you have to make a decision by then, but the deadlines often aren't reached by that point. And so it's challenging. It's challenging.
Yeah.
And,
So I'm seeing things like virtual 5K runs and virtual events that are people signing up for to support, you know, I mean, maybe for the summer, for the next 90 days, are these trends that we're going to see, do you think, coming out, how we can host events and be involved? And I mean, you know, are we going to put a start and finish line up that people can just run through the weekend and do what they want? Or what do you think? Any ideas on that?
I'm blown away by just how innovative people are and how quickly they've come to the table to come up with alternatives during these times where we can't physically be on a field or out together or at a start line together. The virtual stuff, yes, seems to be trending, and you know, people have different ways of even getting creative with that. Go out and see how far you can go in an hour, or complete, you know, a marathon or half marathon or 10K and submit your results. We'll send you a medal. I mean, you're certainly missing overall, like, let's get everybody together kind of feel of that. So I think it works for some people, and for some people they'll probably just wait for the real thing. But
yeah, I missed the post beer 5K, and it's really hard. I mean, maybe Kim and I, want to do a 5K right now on Zoom, Kim. We can, you know, just like, you know, this is where I'm doing it. It's not really helping my any like get in shape, but I feel like, you know, Zoom 5Ks are going to be the new thing, which I'm not sure what that looks like. So, so Kim, economic development, communities, what are your peers saying? I mean, this is a big loss. I mean, I think about even Grand Junction with JUCO and GJ Rockies, and then bigger communities that have the, you know, Colorado Rapids and NFL and all that. So what's going on in your world that you're seeing with this?
Well, sports do play a very significant role in our communities, everywhere from, you mentioned our rec centers to, you know, the little baseball games with our children to everywhere up to the NFL or to baseball. And so not only are we losing serious sales that pay for those sports or pay for the players, we also are missing out on a major part of quality of life that we see on a daily basis. And so, you know, from, you know, seniors who go to their water aerobics and they aren't able to do that. And so how are they getting their exercise? And and that's also social time for them. My mom hasn't been able to go to her exercise class, and that's where all of her friends are. And so she, you know, there is a side and a depression factor to that. But then also all of those sales tax dollars that aren't getting back to our municipalities. So we are going to see a major decline in our sales tax revenue, not just from retail, but also from sports as well.
Yeah, I'm on the Fruita Parks and Rec Board, and you know, there's big, you know, the Mike's Festival that's going to be it's postponed, and it's always a favorite of mine, and many of you that have just come out and hung out with music, and I think 5K run, and that supports all these kind of recreational programs. And we have our rec center, and so again, I don't think we really understand what that impact looks like and how quickly we can get back up to speed with that. You know, one of the things I think about, and what I've been reading here, is plan now, play later mantra as a business objective. How are you all seeing, or maybe Jen is that what people are thinking about? I think it's the same thing in the business world, where they're like, we're putting these lead development plans together, trying to do different things. And, but is that something you think we can do properly, or is that a recommendation for communities maybe? Or, you know, I mean, we're just trying to give a little bit of words of advice as people are trying to scramble.
Right. Yeah, you know, it's an interesting concept, and it really has to do with the level of sport you're talking about. I mean, you mentioned something as huge as the Kentucky Derby for Louisville getting moved to Saturday in September, Labor Day weekend. Now, what's going on Saturdays in the fall around the country, right? There's already college football and all these other things are happening. So now you've got this compression issue happening where folks, we saw in our March tracking for Sports ETA, 92% of events were canceled outright and 8% were postponed. We'll track that again for April and June and so forth, but it's not always a circumstance where you can pick up a season or even a particular event and then place that at another date in the calendar. It impacts registration. It impacts the ability for broadcast and media rights, sponsorship dollars. Those things just domino effect across the scene. So as much as you'd love to be able to say, hey, my kid missed Little League, or as a community, we couldn't host JUCO, let's drop it in the fall. That's really just not feasible from a calendar perspective. There are some circumstances where that can happen, but on the whole, it really has to do with the size and scope of the sport event you're talking about, and whether it's a seasonal approach, and also the community that it's being held in, right? You see that right now with the NFL draft that was slated for Las Vegas, and now they're going virtual, and now there's IT guys camped out in front of GM's houses to make sure things don't go haywire. So it's just, it really just does depend on the sport and the location.
So let's talk about the NFL draft, because there's a great example. These are the first, it's never happened before like this. So you think everybody's trying to watch so NFL came up, they have a draft, everybody's figuring out, and I read, I think I was sharing articles together, is like, they have to send all this expensive equipment out to each of the people and then train these guys or have a tech or, social distance tech support. I was just imagining this in my head, so, I mean, again, and then I think Kim was talking about how watching this is not the same, right? It's not the same excitement. And, we're already behind on, NBA games and hockey. I mean, I don't know, we're going to be playing hockey in August, trying to finish it up. I know we're just kind of going through different things, but I mean, how does this happen, or what do you think people are going to learn from it, or are we going to lose fan excitement?
That is a good question. I think the NFL, just talking about the major sports leagues, has really been the one that's had a little bit more time to consider this, because just by the nature of the calendar, it's a fall league. So the league starts in the fall. So they have a little bit of leeway, whereas the NBA was mid-season, baseball was getting ready to kick off, all of those sorts of things. I think you're going to see some of this stick. I mean, we're obviously just as workers, we're developing new ways to work, and the old cliche about necessity being the mother of invention is true. You can check out the iRacing on NASCAR and things of that nature just to fill that void. And Kimberly hit the nail on the head. The economics is one big important spoke in the wheel, but it's the quality of life, the intangibles, that feeling around the community when JUCO comes to town. Those are the things that are irreplaceable in a lot of sense.
Yeah, the fan connection is definitely something I think we're going to learn new ways to connect to the fans, and subscription type of models that we're going to go. Renee, with, we're seeing we're just talking about events moving or being put on hold. And it sure seems like we're going to have a stack of events coming up in September where everybody's going to want to have their September, October, November type of event, because no one really wants to know what's going to put on. Do you know how much time, or is there a new planning where it used to take maybe a year to plan, or 6 months, 9 months? Are we seeing that we're trying to re-hustle calendars? Are we able to make a month-by-month decision on some of these, or are some easier to move than others? Maybe there's recommendations you have, or what you're starting to see.
I've, in the beginning, which it wasn't even that long ago with all of this, right? I think a lot of people's first knee-jerk reaction was trying to reschedule and trying to look at the calendar for the fall. And as things have developed and evolved, my 2 cents to those folks is don't do that, because we already have a full calendar in September without trying to dump other events on there. And people are having to choose between what they're able to attend, if that becomes the case. So I think all events at that point then suffer, like the ones that were already scheduled for September are going to suffer because now we're dumping other events on top of them. But I think people's tune has changed a little bit, just given that everything has become more and more uncertain. And so do they really want to put their efforts into rescheduling in this calendar year when in a month from now we could it could change, and our restrictions haven't been lifted, and so they're still unable to do it. I think they're going to lose money and resources and having to keep sending out communications to their participants and athlete base on, new update, we've changed again. So I think what I'm seeing is that more and more people are kind of giving up on trying to reschedule this year and just saying we're postponing it until next year, or we're just going to forego 2020 and put all of our energy and effort into 2021.
Yeah, I have seen that already, which is it's April or going into May, and we're already seeing, even like things like Disney, for all places, are thinking just maybe we should just wait or do things in 2021, right? Which is, it's just crazy to me. And I'm wondering, like, what events can we have and save? I mean, this isn't about the music industry, but I know each of you like to go see live music. And I think it's the same for that too. We're like, how do we plan and schedule? So back to, so the events, one of the things, I've been on these tourism calls for the state and that. And so as people, communities start, when they're going to open up and can, it's more of a regional approach is what it sounds like to me. We're going to look to attract people from, maybe the next community over versus, getting people to come. Maybe we get people to come from Denver, but are people going to want to stay overnight? Do they feel safe? Or can we get people to come, within an hour, 2-3 hours away? So I don't know if any of you have any thoughts. Kim, have you heard anything like that? Like community saying, hey, let's make community first and then work outward. I'm not sure what you guys are hearing.
Yeah, we do have some very sensitive areas in our state that were the first ones to feel the effect. For instance, Gunnison is very gun shy, no pun intended, but very gun shy right now into allowing a lot of people into their community. And so, they really want to be thoughtful in their approach. Of course, they want to open up. They need to get their businesses going. They need to have outside dollars coming into their community in order for the economy to be robust. But they also need to do it sensibly, and they also need to put their constituents first. And so when we think about how we advertise and market the different parts of our parts of our state, is how do we, everything right now is about what's inside your home, what's inside your backyard, what's across the street. What can you do that keeps you from, it gives you the ability for social distancing, but also allows you to have some enjoyment in your life. As we phase ourselves into back into normal, reality and how we do things, I see sports phasing in that way, as well as our events and large venue type opportunities. But it will be a phase-in process, and it also has to do with how quickly we can get some kind of cure, vaccine or medication that would help alleviate some of the severity of the disease. So, I think it's a waiting game.
Yeah, I think every day we're trying to figure out what this vaccine is and, what's going to happen, and we're going to track things across the country. So I'm thinking a lot about families we know that have kids going to school or college sports and, and things like that. I mean, we've always been big like CU supporters, and now Mavs since we live out here. I really love the Mavs football, baseball. So I don't know. I'm going to go to Jen on this. What do you think is going to happen, or what is we don't have a crystal ball, and I'm not here to scare anybody, but I am a realist. So I'm wondering if you have any questions on that.
Yeah, Kim, you bring up a really interesting point too, just in terms of the phasing in, and I think there is opportunity here. And the world that Renee and I live in with sport tourism, whether it's the NFL draft or a Little League tournament, the perception of sport as a consumer is that they just kind of happen and we watch them, and we go to Denver, we go to Salt Lake, or we come to Grand Junction for events. But when you layer it with the tourism side, those are all, no matter if it's the Super Bowl to the Olympics all the way down to our kids leagues, those are all bid on events that communities are proactively going out to host for that economic development, for quality of life, for community brand exposure. So those types of things, that bid on activity, has always been front and center in this industry. But over the past couple of years, we've seen this trend increase. So how does this really play a role in community development and economic development from a job recruitment and retention perspective, from a repeat visitation perspective. Those sorts of things have been kind of underlying. So I really think from our perspective, you know, leisure travel will probably pick up first, even leisure sport travel, because it's something, it's less regulated and constricted in terms of set competition.
Okay, so let's back up a second. When you say leisure sports travel, what the heck do you mean? Because a lot of people listening.
Yeah. No, that's a good question.
Does that mean me in a Speedo swimming out in some blue water or standing on a
well, hopefully not. Hopefully not, Greg.
I mean, I got some pictures. What is leisure?
Yeah, people that are traveling for the fun of it, they're not here for a specific tournament or event. They're just saying, hey, you know what? Fruit is looking awesome this weekend. I want to go over there and ride my mountain bike, maybe hit up a brewery or grab a pizza at Hot Tomato or something like that. That's what we're talking about for leisure travel. And that kind of allows that natural social distancing aspect of it. So I think we'll see that pick up. And that's a great thing for our local community on the Western Slope to see that. And I also think it's going to just create opportunities to really dive into that recreation sport for our community, because what you said, Greg, is absolutely right. People are going to be a little bit resident to travel. So if we can focus on some things across the industry that are frankly, you know, diversifying our revenue and our portfolios and trying to create opportunities for local kids in a safe and meaningful way, that helps us all win in this interim and long term as we diversify.
Yeah. I think we do see, and Renee, maybe I keep thinking like this, like I'd like to see like Mesa County start opening up like local events for local people, you know, kind of getting that sense and safety back together. And, you know, so kids can play, we can go run a 5K, have that kind of community-based sports again. And I think we're all hearing the same thing is, I think we're going to watch the numbers over the next month and see what happens. And then is there things that we see that are going to, you said leisure travel, and Renee, do you see anything that might turn on first? You know, like as we go back, as we see things pulling back into this, if the schedule allows?
You know, talking to a few organizations and event owners, I think some of that opportunity is more just to make the local community feel comfortable first. And it's also trying to align with what the DMOs in the city and the county are trying to message as well. So it's
again, DMO,
the destination management organizations like our Visit Grand Junction.
I gotta just say it because people will text me later and be like, yeah.
I probably didn't know what that was. Oh.
No, it's okay. You're on our show here. I'm just trying to make people smarter because I always forget like DMO and then I have to guess. So destination marketing organizations like Visit Grand Junction. Thank you. Continue.
Visit Grand Junction, the city, the county, like what is their plan and what do they want their message to be? And then how can we help educate event owners and sporting events? Because, you know, to me, I feel like we have to align with that a little bit. They can't just say, we're ready to have our sporting event and open it up to all this tourism and outside people coming into our community if the community's not ready for that. So it's like, how do we create this atmosphere where locally we're comfortable and we're putting on events and sports that our local families and kids are comfortable with, and then kind of expand from there.
Yeah, I agree to that. And I think we're going to see we're going to watch a lot of sports where there's no fans. And I think that if they're smart, they're not going to keep spanning to the stands, right? And say, look at all, you know, because I don't think anybody really, it's so strange. I mean, we don't want to see a stands full of masks or things like that, or those types of, you know, items. I think we're going to get into an environment where, you know, it's going to be a strange thing. We're going to go to events and they're going to take our temperature when we walk in to go to a baseball game. We're going to have distance seating. I mean, I don't know if that's going to help anything. You know, I don't know what the new normal is going to be. And maybe we kind of, with a couple minutes we have left, we go around. I know, Kim, do you think there is a new normal that could come out of this? You know, I mean, we got tons of hand washing stations. I mean, do we, you know, temperature checks, or I don't know. I mean, I just hope it doesn't get that way because I don't think that's going to help people to go to events, but maybe that's what it's going to take to feel safe.
What scares me, I think it's in South Korea, they're testing an app on your phone. And if you test with a temperature, you can set off everybody's phone around you.
Oh,
you can be a potential carrier. I mean, that just scares me. I don't want to go out and be that person. So I hope it doesn't get to that point. And honestly, I don't think so. I'm an optimist. I believe that this is short term, just like every other pandemic we've ever had. Our science community is amazing and brilliant, and they are working very quickly. And it's not just the US, it's the whole world that is working on this cure. And so again, it's going to be like every other pandemic where, yes, we're going to have a little PSD over it for a while, but for the short term, but then in the long term, we're going to forget about the effect. We're going to say, oh yeah, I remember that was such a crazy time, but we're going to go back to a lot of our normal behaviors. Now, I do see that maybe and hopefully, people are a lot cleaner and they realize that, I do have a cough and I shouldn't go to work, and our employers should feel and should encourage work from home if you are sick. And it's not because somebody's, just lazy, it's because they don't want to get their coworkers sick. And so I hope we do start seeing some changes as we move forward, knowing that we can affect each other. But we shouldn't be scared of each other either.
One, I don't want to run a 5K in a mask. I don't barely run a 5K without a mask. So I don't hope that doesn't happen. But if it does, then I think you're right about coughing and sneezing. God forbid you have like the allergies and I'm on a plane and I sneeze. I think those things kind of like, those worry me too. But I do like your positivity, Kim, as always, so the world, it's not woe, it's just how do we plan forward to go through this? And I'm not sure, I don't know if anybody has it, but I do appreciate the science. And I'm thinking if we just turn off the media for about 2 weeks, I think when we come back, we'll say like things are a little bit better. Hey, how about you, Renee? Any closing thoughts that you're looking at, or advice, or what do you think the new normal might look like? Or can you beat Kim's positivity?
I do. I mean, events are going to look different, most likely forward for a while. I think that it's a question of like somebody has to go first and see what happens and how effective whatever measures they put in place were or are. And it's kind of scary to be that first group, I suppose, but I do think that people are going to have to get creative and innovative with how they're going to host their events. I mean, you look at 5Ks and cycling events and stuff like that. I think there's going to be potentially more costs involved with putting some of those events on for a while, with having to manage crowd control and keeping distance and communication with how do you make your participants and athletes feel comfortable, even get them to the start line. What items can you provide them for safety measures? And then it's kind of the question of if you're requiring that they have to wear this, should you even be putting it on? So
yeah, I choke up in the grocery store trying to wear my mask, so you don't want to see that. So I agree with you. We got to keep the safety first, and I think we'll be testing on that. Well, thank you, Renee. Jen, one thing that came to mind was we didn't really talk about the Olympics. Those got moved. Those are one of the first things that it sounded like a little global push, and from athletes in different countries decided to go to next year. So to me, that was a big deal. But I don't know. So we're going to close out with you on this, I think, unless anybody to say you got to beat their positivity. What do you think is going to happen? Are we just going to watch table tennis or create our own sports going forward in our backyards, or what do you think?
Well, hopefully lawn darts don't make a comeback during this stay-at-home order place. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the Olympics.
Husband and wives are starting to throw things at each other with this work, with all this. So there might be some kind of sports that come out of it. But yeah. I mean, but Kim and Renee are spot on. I mean, the optimism is there. Sport has always been something that has brought us together as people over time, and there are a lot of benefits to that, economically and otherwise, as we talked about. It will look different. There's no doubt about it. We're watching trends into really at least the second half of 21 into 22 for an upswing just in how these organizations are typically funded and things of that nature. But I think there's definitely a silver lining there when we talk about our local area and how we create opportunities for our local populations and spawning that into economic development. You always hear in specialization, which is, kids picking one sport at the ripe age of 7 and not diversifying their participation opportunities.
So I think there will be some good things that come from that in the long haul and on the long haul. And I'm with Kim, you know, at some point in time, we're going to kind of get back, and this is going to fade a little bit, but it's going to change the way we do business as an industry.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to have a lot of newness come out, and new products, services, business. That's what I usually see out of this from like economic recoveries and things like that. You know, I want to say, I have Elizabeth Fogarty from Visit Grand Junction who heads up that. She's on listening, and she sent me a message. I was going to bring her on, but as we're closing out here, we'll get her on the next one. But she does say Visit Grand Junction strategy will continue to put the safety and health of all this community first. Our lifestyle as residents will continue to guide our focus, concerns, and initiatives as a destination marketing organization, that DMO word. So I think that's a great, and I love to hear that. You know, we're taking our residents first. I know we putting all that message out there. We love our visitors. I live in Fruita. We're a big destination for all kinds of fun things. And I want people to know that there's a lot of smart people working behind this. I really appreciate each one of you and what you're doing in your community and your organization. I know that it's tiresome because we're on a lot of these calls and we're trying to figure out every day. There seems for me and my customers are putting a new plan in place that we didn't have last week because there's a shift in that. And I think we'll get through this together. I think we'll learn from it. I think we'll learn for the next kind of pandemic. We'll help people. I think we'll be a lot stronger, and we just have to be a little bit patient that we know we're going to go back to a baseball game in the future. We know we're going to go see a concert. We know our kids are going to be playing those games. And in the short term, we just got to figure out like, what can we do to stay engaged fans, whether it's a college, a local rec center, NASCAR, or those kinds of things. So as we continue to have those ideas, we'll continue to share. With that, we'll close out, and I appreciate each one of you and what you do. And I have a wonderful day. All right. And I look forward to talking to you soon.